and timely in so many aspects when I think about specific things. Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Recent facts and figures shine light on reality and impact of financial abuse. Chicago-based relationship abuse expert shares signs and steps to stop the cycle. Our guest today, Sharlsse Kimbro, relationship abuse program officer at the Allstate Foundation. Sharlsse, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me today.
What did you kind of, this is just really intriguing. And when you talk about the financial abuse, this is something, we're always talking about other types of domestic abuse, but explain that whole financial abuse thing.
Absolutely. Well, as you all may know, today is October 1st. It's the beginning of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime, and nearly all of them will also experience financial abuse. And financial abuse happens when one person tries to control, limit, or restrict another person's ability to use, acquire, or accumulate financial resources. And as you mentioned, this is a form of domestic violence that is often not recognized. So that's why conversations like the one we're having is so important.
I mean, how can you kind of relate that and look at specifically enough? Because in a relationship, there's always one person might be doing more of the bills and things like that. How can you, how do you see this as happening?
Yeah, well, financial abuse can really take on many forms, and it's important to think about it in terms of control and creating dependency. So it can look like job interference, which can include preventing somebody from getting to work physically, with like withholding transportation or excessively calling or texting while someone is at work to interfere with their productivity and to create a disturbance. It can also include coming up to the job site and making threatening remarks or creating an unsafe situation for that individual or their coworkers. It can also include credit card debt by coercion or force, forcing someone to take out debt that they may not want to take out, or taking out debt in someone's name without their knowledge. It can include excessively monitoring spending, creating or imposing an allowance without consent. So these are all different forms of financial abuse that, in some senses, are somewhat normalized. As you said, in relationships, there's usually one person maybe that might handle the bills or another. But really, the thing to focus on is the intention. Is it done to coerce, to control someone, or is it done to create dependency?
And that's the thing in a partnership, in a relationship, there's a partnership. And if you don't feel that that partnership's balanced in certain aspects, then there's a problem.
Right. Absolutely. And really the thing with financial abuse is the impact that it can have on an individual can be really quite significant. That survivors say that the lack of access to financial resources is the number one barrier to their safety. And a lot of survivors only report only having access to $175.50 without their harm doer's knowledge. So if you're in an unsafe situation and all you have is less than $200, it's going to be very difficult for you to leave that situation. And, financial abuse, like a lot of other forms, it happens on a continuum. Domestic violence happens along a continuum. And financial abuse and emotional abuse and psychological abuse are often the precursors to much more significant physical abuse that most people associate with domestic violence.
Interesting. It's the beginning process. There's a red flag coming up if you see that they're controlling specifically enough your spending habits, what you're doing in specific things, instead of sitting down and looking at it together as a partnership.
Right. Right, because if you don't have access to resources, if you don't have the ability to use resources as you see fit, then there's no way you're going to be able to leave if it gets to the point where you feel like you need to leave. So you really do become dependent on the other person, and that can be a very dangerous situation.
And sometimes it's out of your cause that happens. You know what I mean? People become dependent on each other, and hopefully
Absolutely.
it figure it out to understanding that the relationship. And I think it goes back to specific things for sure. Let's kind of dive deeper into some of the things we should look out for. Like what's some things right now when you're talking about financially as a couple to make sure that we can kind of eliminate some of those things that you talked
Well,
about.
Sure. I think one of the primary things is to really make sure you're operating with mutual respect and trust and accountability, but it should be mutual. The mutuality is really important, that both parties are coming to the table, as you said, talking about things, making decisions together. It doesn't want to be where one person is making all the decisions for the entire collective and then forcing a certain perspective or role or restrictions on the collective. And really making sure that things are done in a way that are open, where no one feels afraid. There's no fear of repercussions or no fear of what could happen if X, Y, or Z, but really having an environment that's healthy, as you described, and loving and kind and considerate of one another. And I think those are the most important things that folks in relationships can be mindful of. And for friends and family and bystanders, if you see somebody who may overly be concerned about spending in a way that seems fearful or seems beyond what's normal or natural, and someone who excessively has to ask for permission to do things or to spend money, even small amounts, those are some things you can kind of take note of and maybe want to ask further questions of the individual to really figure out what's going on and how you can help.
And it can happen on both ends of the spectrum in other relationships. When you look at, that person overspent everything completely to a point
Yep.
that you can't even have a budget or anything. And you kind of have that trust issue because of that factor, because it can go both ways. It can go the way where
Yep.
we have all unlimited resources. Go ahead and do what you need to do without looking at, particularly what that budget means, how to live within your means and things in that nature.
Well, certainly, and I think even when you have folks that may hide their spending, or hide resources, or you don't really know what you have, right? That can be also another sign of financial abuse. If someone is taking effort to hide it, or like you said, spending it all, and then you don't have anything. So the end result is kind of the same, where you don't have access to the resources that maybe you've even earned and worked for.
And that's where the thing of looking at financial literacy is such an important part in this conversation as well. Wouldn't you agree, Sharlsse?
Oh, 100%. Financial literacy is so important. And in fact, at the Allstat Foundation, we worked with DV advocates from across the country to create a workbook, a financial education workbook called the Moving Ahead Workbook, where folks who are experiencing domestic violence or folks who haven't can really gain some really important information about finances, to really learn, kind of all the ins and outs, so that you can help to, if you've been in a financially abusive situation, you can help get yourself out of it, but hopefully to prevent you from even getting into one in the first place.
All right. Best place people can connect again with you. Where can they go?
You can go to allstatefoundation.org. And I also just wanted to mention that if there's anybody right now who's experiencing domestic violence, financial abuse, or otherwise, you can reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at thehotline.org. They are available to help 24/7, 365 days a year.
All right. Thank you.